Welcome to OXYWORD. We have a currently incarcerated person at Washington Correction Center for Women. Will you state your name?
Candice Baughman.
Okay, and this is our second interview. So from what I understand, quite a few things have happened since our first interview. So what would you like the public to know?
Okay, so I've been incarcerated at Washington Correction Center for 5 years now. I've already done one interview, and I wanted to follow up. Currently, I reside in maximum security unit called CTU. There are a few issues recently I'd like to bring to everyone's attention. Staff shortages have affected our way of life. Right now, many of you have seen the issue with labor affecting stores and even may have heard the term the Great Resignation. This issue is also happening here at Washington Correction Center for Women. Both staff shortages are affecting inmates in ways you would not imagine. There have been no school or programming due to staff shortages. This has affected the incarcerated population because we are now in a sort of educational limbo where many of us are unsure what we are going to do in the next academical year. Some have only 1 or 2 classes left to complete a degree or receive a certificate. The quarter has been extended, and there were only about 4 days spent in class before school was shut down again. Legislation has been passed, and policies are in place to make education for prisoners a priority. It's not happening. There are hired TAs here, yet they are not given opportunities to tutor and help fellow inmates in the unit. There are currently no educational resources available, especially to those who are taking correspondence courses, which include computers or classroom time or help from instructors. This is only education. Staff shortages also affect our access to the gym and or recreation. There has been no gym, and when there is gym, more recently, it is not consistent. This has been an issue for over 3 months now. There also has not been any access to the library. The Washington State Library is available on campus in the education building. The library is important for research and leisure reading. Leisure reading plays an integral role in how inmates can do time in a positive way. Being closed for months because of COVID and staff shortages is unreasonable. In the last week, the education building has been open, yet CCU is only getting 2 hours a week compared to other units getting 4 to 5 hours a week. Mass security inmates' access to leisure reading is paramount because we only get 3 hours out of our cell a day. Reading is an important vehicle for our stability and positive mental health, not to mention entertainment and educational. The lack of positive programming is greatly affecting the mental health of incarcerated and also there's been no religious services for over 6 months. Here at Washington Correction Center for Women, due in part by the outbreaks of COVID, but mostly staff shortages. There have been numerous amounts and memos about religious services resuming, and nothing has come to fruition. Our new Associate Superintendent programs, ideas, and policies have played a huge role in the decline of positive programming of those incarcerated here. The new ASB has implemented a strict implementation of loosely written policies, such as the policy on room moves. These implementations are used to target and attack the LGBT community and break positive support relationships. These implementations are discriminatory and unfair. The ASP has made comments alluding to the fact that she will target not only couples, but anyone she even suspects as being in a relationship. There have been staff members who have quit because they do not agree with how the ASP is implementing changes. Loosely valued mental health, staff, and teachers, and a negative effect on the new ASP's policy and ideas. These teachers and mental health providers we get to know, and them leaving because of a new administration is definitely not a positive situation. The last thing I'd like to mention is regard to the new ASP and the administration at WCCW is fundraisers. Fundraisers have been at WCCW for over 20 years and have been one of the most encouraging rewards for good behavior. As an incentive, we are allowed to purchase outside food and dessert for good behavior. Along with that, we contribute a portion of that cost to a selected fundraiser, such as the Boys and Girls Club or the Humane Society. The criteria has been 3 months major infraction-free and 60 days minor infraction-free, and now is being changed to using an outdated policy requiring 6 months infraction-free. This has caused virtually an entire unit exclusion from the participating in the fundraiser. The ASP has shot down numerous pleas for the years-old exception to remain in place as 3 months major infraction free. Along with the ASP has taken away the portions and options that we have had for years for the fundraisers. For example, instead of a whole pie, it is only a slice. The one time a year we're able to have ice cream is no longer an option because we can only choose to use the deli and or ice cream is in the different area of the store, and we do not have that on the fundraiser form any longer. These changes are unreasonable and diminish the inspiration to stay out of trouble for the reward. Also, fundraisers are a way the incarcerated population can give back to the community, and our contributions are being reduced significantly. That means that charitable organizations we choose to donate is only receiving half of what we were given last year. I believe this is damaging to the individual organization, but also to the community as a whole. When we contribute to Humane Society in the past, they received the usual amount that was expected. Now they will be receiving half that, and the time with our donation could be a make it or break it for a nonprofit because of COVID. This is not okay, and the change is not a kind aspect. These issues may seem mute to you or petty, but I would like to point out that as the 20th century dawned, we left behind the notion of insane asylums and gradually acknowledged the need to treat mental illness with compassion, creativity, and hope. Now the 21st century is dawning, and it's time for us to take that same step with criminal behavior, leaving behind prisons as warehouses and acknowledging the need for facilities which surround inmates with kindness, fairness, and encouragement to change for the better. Prison reform is so important. You can't correct prisons or help them correct themselves by creating cold, impersonal environments which focus at best on skills or training rather than basic human-to-human interactions. Society expects ex-cons to be responsible and engage in future social decency among inmates and society as a whole. Yet an environment is maintained in which it is dangerous to speak out, help a friend, or show one's true feelings about anything. I have watched people change in this system for the better, despite your system, rather than because of it. There is no conflict between running a facility built on social values and running a secure one. Change is inevitable because of the system doesn't work. It doesn't work for society, staff, officers, or the people it hopes to correct. If the system won't change itself, then it's up to you to wise up and make changes bit by bit. It's time to remind the authorities that prisons are part of the community and discuss ways to improve it before it collapses. If not you, if not now, when? That's all I have to say.
Now, how do you think we can reduce crime with these new programs that you're talking about there?
Passionate and kind with other human beings. Support positive relationships so that when we get out, we know how to do that in society. If we don't know how to have positive relationships in prison, how are we going to do that when we get out?
Now, I know a few years ago, Washington was one of the leaders in reform. People would go to prison, they would receive proper treatment, proper programs, and then they'd get out, and their chance of going back to prison was slim to none. And so we've had a downfall since then. What advice would you give to our legislators right now on how to get the program to work to the point where we can reduce recidivism right now?
I would first tell the legislation that the first piece where they allowed education available to long-termers was definitely a huge step in the right direction. The more positive programming we have, the more we can change for the better. Right now, with COVID, these things are being put to the wayside. We still need these programs. We still need positive programming. We need education. We need religious services. Right now, our institutions are using COVID and staff shortages as a reason to not give us the things that we need. Recidivism is probably increased in the last 2 years because of COVID. The administration is allowing these programs to fall to the wayside, and that's not okay. Ultimately, the legislature should see that the longer people are incarcerated, the more institutionalized they become, and the harder the transition is to the real world. Another huge step would be reentry. Things like electrical monitoring, like the graduated reentry program, is a huge, good direction. Ultimately, we need to rethink sentencing guidelines, and we need to stop using COVID and staff shortages as excuses to not support inmates.
All right. Do you have any final words before we conclude our conversation?
No, I don't. I just beg for your help and for the society to listen to what's going on instead of just making assumptions.
Okay. Do you mind if anybody contacts you through JPay or writes a letter to you?
Yep, you're welcome to write me or get on my JPay. My DOC number is 373374.
All right. Thank you for your input and for your time, and I wish you the best of luck being locked up in there.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much, and I'll keep in contact.
You're welcome.